My name's Rachel McLeod. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach. And today I'm going to be talking to you about the 3 reasons, or let me say that again, 3 reasons why you've built a life for yourself that excludes your own emotional wellness and runs you to the ground. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So I want to invite you during this time, if you have any questions or comments, to pop those below. If you get on while we're live, I will take time to answer those if I have enough time. Okay. And if not, then I will get on later and I will answer those. So even if you're catching the replay of this, go ahead and do that and I will follow up with that. So having said that, let's jump into this topic, because I think it's really an important one, and it's where a lot of us find ourselves. No one sets out to do this. No one sets out, hey, I'm going to build a life that absolutely is awesome for everybody but me, and that I'm in the middle of this thing suffering, and I couldn't find my emotional wellness if you asked me where it went. Like, that's not what we do. And we also don't set out to say, hey, I'm going to have life run me into the ground, right? But yet we'll find ourselves in this place in our life where we've used all of our resources, we've used all of our insight, all of our relationships, all of our knowledge about life and ourself and how we work, and we build this thing, and maybe we've got 2.5 children, and we've got a partner, or at least we had a partner before we ran that thing to the ground too, and we're trying to do our best loving these babies, but we're finding that our own misery and our own unmet needs are sabotaging even that. And we came into this thing with big hopes and with big dreams, and yet we're left with not emotional wellness. We're left with unwellness. We're noticing that we have no time for our health. We're out of shape. We're overweight. We're using food to deal with our emotions. We're drinking too much wine. We are smoking too much marijuana. We're not being recreational about any of the important things in our life, but we're starting to create some habits of self-sabotage and addiction, and we're trying to meet the pain with things that will make us feel better, but only for a short amount of time, and then we're left with the consequences. And so we're finding ourselves making worse and worse decisions, and inside there's a panic that can start, and this is what happens when you realize that you don't know how this thing works, you don't know how you got here, you don't like it, and you're empty. And this is when you start snapping at your babies. This is where you start pushing your kids away. This is where you start wanting everyone to leave you alone. This is where you start hiding out in the bathroom. This is where you start hiding out in the car before you get home, before you walk in the door. This is where you're hearing from yourself that you're not well, and yet your life does not stop for you. It does not say, hey, gosh, you're unwell. We should really do something about that. Hey, and hold the horses. It doesn't. It just keeps moving and can really run you to the ground. And you can find yourself being, coming out of your teen years, having all this zest for life, having all this power, all this potential. And all of a sudden you find yourself 15 years later and you're empty, you're depleted, you're numb, you're anxious, you're terrified inside, and you don't know how to make it stop. And so I know that this is what happens. I talk to a lot of people, and you know what? I know that when this happens, there's, when you're not well emotionally and you don't know how to get your feet back under you, oh gosh, it's such a really lonely place, especially if you're one of those go-getter powerhouse women or men out there, and you're used to everyone thinks you have it all together, and they don't know that what's going on the inside is some incredible turmoil, and that you're coming unraveled. And you're anxious out, just at the seams. It's just coming apart. And you hear where I'm going. You're trying your best. You're doing, but you can't, you're a human, you're right. You're not, you're better than a car, but eventually you just run out of gas. You run out of steam, and you find yourself moving at slower paces. You find yourself making poor choices, and really trying to still be happy, because that's what's going on with the human spirit. Like, we have to be happy, and the human spirit will go to great lengths to make that happen. But when there's so much emotional unwellness, or there's just no room for you in your life, this is what happens. And why would you create a life of yours where there's no room for you to be well? There's no room for you to be thriving. When you have to give to everybody else and not for yourself, why would you create a life like that? And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to tell you 3 reasons why you're doing that so that you can really shift out of that and take control of what's happening in your mind. And the first reason is that you would build a life like that for yourself because that's how you were taught. You may have experienced, maybe your parents lived like this, right? That they were there to make your life great, but that theirs really wasn't. And so you learned that this is how life is. You know, hey, Ange. You know this, that society teaches you this. They teach you to put everyone else in front of yourself. Don't be selfish. You know, the best of us are selfless. And that's a lie that has you less of yourself, right? And then there's TV and media sending these same messages over and over again. And it's really easy to lose your way. It's really easy to not matter anymore and to not even matter in your own life. And let me tell you what, if you don't matter in your own life, you'll reflect that and you'll attract that back to you. And so there will be many, many people who you will not matter to, including your own children. Okay, so this is horrible. But let's talk about what this is. This is your subconscious programming. And this is the life has conditioned you like this, and your subconscious program is set up like this. And so you cannot surpass your subconscious programming, because if you do, your subconscious mind will sabotage you. It will undermine all your efforts. It will make you feel like you are uncomfortable, you are doing something wrong, and the alarms start to go off day and night, night and day. And then you begin to do things that shut the alarm off. And those things are designed perfectly to get you to come back to how you are programmed to live your life. And so that's why people can be stuck here where they do not want to be, but they can't get out because their subconscious programming is set to this setting. If you have built a life where you're not able to be emotionally well, you have to start looking at your subconscious programming. And you have to start making changes on that level. Okay, and this is something that you absolutely can do. It's something that's not as difficult as what people think. You don't have to become a hypnotherapist to be able to do that. You just have to know what you're doing, and you have to have skills for this. But more than that, you have to want to have skills for that. And you have to get to a place where you hate this so much that you will do just about anything to get this. Because I'll tell you what, going after your subconscious programming is like taking on a bull with horns. Right? And it's fun if you really like that sort of thing, which I do. Not the bull with the horns, but I like to wrestle with subconscious programming because it's fun. And your mind actually doesn't want to hold on to this stuff. It's just doing what it's been programmed to do. And you have a right and a responsibility to program your mind the way you want it to be. And I'll tell you what, if your life right now does not include your emotional wellness, then it's time to get to some scrubbing. Okay, it's time to start taking out that subconscious brain trash and get it out. If you do not, this is how you should expect to live. And let me tell you, you will struggle and you will fight, but you cannot beat your subconscious programming. It works day and night. It never sleeps. You do, right? And it has all kinds of ways to help you to create what you have been programmed to create. Okay, so I don't like going against the subconscious mind. I like to work with it. And there are really powerful ways to get it to do the work you want to do. But that's for another time. It takes me quite a while to train people to do that, but I want you to want it. I want you to go after it. I want you to start looking for it. I want you to start questioning it. Okay, because it's something that once you get, it is super powerful. But right, if you don't value it, if you don't go searching for it, you will not find it. And so I'm really wanting to bring that to your attention so that you start seeing it everywhere around you, because it's everywhere around you. It's everywhere around you. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why you would have done this to yourself. And you didn't even consciously do this to yourself, right? Your subconscious programming starts like in infancy. Excuse me. I want to say all the letters right here. And before the age of 7, you have no filter on your subconscious mind. You're getting all these lessons shoved into your subconscious mind. And for some of you, that's terribly terrifying, because you know where you were raised in is not the good stuff. You know, and some of us were raised pretty well, but there's still subconscious stuff in there we've got to get and pull out. And so, you know, if this is what you've created, I want you to think about this and then get busy. The second reason why you would create a life like this, where you have no room for emotional wellness and you couldn't find it if you were looking for it, and why you would create a life that runs you to the ground, which I want to say that over and over again because that will make no sense. Okay? It does not make any logical sense to create a life like that, yet that is what many of us have done, possibly even you. Okay, so, but the second reason is that, I've got my stickies, you know I do, is that your emotional wounds leave you crippled and exposed outside of your comfort zone. And, you know, a lot of us learn to, you know, our emotional wounds, we get these. We pick these up all throughout childhood. You could have the best childhood ever, but you're going to come out of that with some emotional wounds, right? There is not a lot of people that come out of childhood with no physical wounds, right? And if you have no physical wounds, you've never got a scratch, you've never fell down and bumped your knee, then you've got emotional wounds from never having had anything, and you might be terrified of falling to the ground and bumping your scratching your leg, right? But so there's no way to come out of your childhood without emotional wounds, even if you've had the best parents, which, you know, I mean, I don't even know what percentage of the population is of that, but chances are you've got the mediocre kind, which are good enough, and which are what most of us are, or you've got the not so good kind, right? And so no matter what happens, you're picking up emotional wounds the same way as you would have physical wounds, right? And you know, some of us have a broken leg, right? You can't use the broken leg. If you've got an emotional wound that is the same as a broken leg, it's a big part of you that you cannot use anymore, right? And so when that happens, if you have a broken leg, that means there's some things you just can't do. And if you were to do it, you would be in excruciating agony. And when you've got emotional wounds, there are things that everybody else can do, but you can't, because if you do them, you feel intense agony. Maybe you should feel intense shame. Maybe you feel this intense sense of, this is wrong. Maybe you feel embarrassment. Maybe you feel exposed, vulnerable, weak, stupid, idiotic. Something's wrong with you, right? Those are all indications of emotional wounds. Right? Maybe, you know, you've been rejected. You've got a rejection wound. Maybe you've been betrayed. You've got a betrayal wound. Maybe you've been physically harmed. You've got a physical harm wound, right? And anywhere that even looks like it could threaten those things, you can't do it, right? So if that means having a healthy partnership, try as you might, you can't. Because that part of you has a break. That part of you has a wound that breaks the function, right? And so that's why we have these relationships where there's so much love, but we keep hurting each other. We keep missing each other, right? And that's because we're both guarding wounds, always, right? And so, but when you can heal those wounds, then you can use that again. And then you get to do the things that people are meant to be doing. Right? You are meant to be emotionally well. You're meant to take that part of your life over again. You see what I'm saying? And so it's just really, this emotional wound thing, I cannot stress this enough. You know, I saw on Facebook today, I'm gonna see if I can remember it. It was a thing that says trauma also looks like being afraid to have because you're afraid it's gonna get taken away. Yes, that's exactly what trauma looks like. You're too afraid to have something because you're afraid it's going to be taken away. I can't tell you how many people that's exactly what we work to resolve, myself included, right? And that's just one of the many ways that happens. But what happens when you can't really give your whole heart to your spouse because you're afraid they're going to get taken away? What happens if you're meeting with that block all the time, and your spouse, they want you so much, they're like begging for you, and you're like, I want you too, but you are mentally and emotionally blocked because you cannot use that muscle or that brain part, right? And so you're stuck staring at each other through the glass wall of your trauma. That's not how it's supposed to be. And I want you to start looking at that wall, that glass wall of trauma. And I want you to see it for what it is. It's not you. This is what trauma does. Trauma breaks our ability to function well. And if you've got a life that you've built that excludes your emotional wellness and's running you to the ground, that's trauma. right? Those are the emotional wounds. And the emotional wounds are what we pick up from traumas that are unresolved. There are people that can go through traumatic events and they come out okay. They don't have that wounding available, or they don't have that wounding that just knocks them just outright, you know? But that same wound can really do a huge number on somebody else, or even smaller. It just depends on your emotional makeup. And there's nothing wrong, because sometimes we get, even physically, we get wounded by the smallest things, even the strongest of us, right? So it's not about strong or not strong. It's just about emotional wounds. And they are powerful. They are more powerful than most people give credit for. But I want you to know what you're looking at. But what happens is that we are all living in a comfort zone. And so what happens is that this emotional, like your life, how you've built it right now, where it excludes your emotional wellness and it's running you to the ground, is actually, in fact, your comfort zone. You're actually subconsciously and psychologically very comfortable here. That's frightening, huh? And it's angering, because this is not what you want. This is not what you were created for. You were created for full function and vibrant emotional wellness. And to be stuck here is a violation of your very self. So let's talk about reason number 3, because it pulls it all together. The third reason why you would build a life where you have no emotional wellness, or is very harmed, or let me say that properly, where you're not vibrantly well and you're being run to the ground by your life, is because you cannot set healthy boundaries. And I know that sounds like, yeah, duh, Rachel, been there, done that. I know, I read the book, right? I got the t-shirt. But yes, I'm going to say it again, because this has to do with your inability to set healthy boundaries, appropriate and healthy boundaries. And when I say healthy boundaries, that means the boundaries that are flexible enough to keep out the bad and bring in the good. And some of you can't do this because you have to have a certain level of connection with yourself. You have to know who you are, what you want, what you need, and you have to be selfish. And some of you have been programmed out of that. You don't know what you need. You don't know what you want. You don't know what these feelings mean. You don't know why you feel this way. People ask you, hey, what's going on? I don't know. I just feel bad, right? This happens. That's called actually alexithymia. Look it up. It's interesting. And it's an indication that you haven't done some of the brain hooking up that you need to do, which can be wired and fired at any time, right? You just have to want it. You just have to choose it. Okay. And you just have to invest in that, some time, energy, focus. Okay. So, but back on track, but if you cannot set healthy boundaries, yes. Okay. So some of you don't know what you need. So you wouldn't know what to set up for yourself or not. Number 2, you can't assert them. So it takes a lot of courage to say things. And some of you have been programmed not to say no, not to challenge things, not to create, not to rock the boat. You've been programmed like that. So you can't create the things in your life that you need or you want because of your programming. You're blocked up against that. And some of you can set the boundaries. You know what you want, you know what you need, but as soon as somebody crosses over them, you're frozen. You go into that limbic state of fight, where you're going to fight them down, or freeze, or you're frozen. You can't say a word, and you just watch them mow down exactly what you asked them not to mow down, or you flight, you run from it, or you just faint. You just faint into non-existence and unchallenge that. And so there's 3 places that people can get stuck with boundaries, but all of that has to do with subconscious programming and emotional wounds. Once you resolve the emotional wounds, your function with boundaries comes right back on. It's one of the funnest things I like to do in this, is because that's when I know that people are healing. They'll come back to me and they'll say, hey, do you know what happened? I said no. And I'm like, yeah. Or they said, I told them what I wanted. That's when we do the dance, right? And that they start saying things like that, and all of a sudden they're standing a little bit taller, and next thing you know, they're getting their eyebrows done. It's funny. It's hilarious what starts to come back on. Self-care. Next thing you know, they're going to the gym because they matter all of a sudden. I love that. That's when the work, that's when the work is rolling, and you just get to celebrate the work that you've done. So, but you need those healthy boundaries. You need to know when to say no. You need to tell somebody what you want. You need to be able to have a place. Like, if you don't have a place, you're teaching your children that I don't matter. And guess what that translates to? When your children grow up, guess what the message they will have learned? They'll learn, I don't matter. They won't learn mama doesn't matter. They'll learn, I don't matter. And this is life. I create a life where I have no emotional wellness and I don't matter and I get run to the ground. Oh gosh, I'm amazing. I did it. I'm exhausted. I don't know what to do. Mom, help me. But, right? And so this is the way you know, if you don't hear me, I know that will get you, because I know that your mama bear is turned right on and you will not tolerate anything harming your babies, including yourself. And I know that is one of the biggest wounds moms have when they have all these emotional wounds, this emotional unwellness, being run to the ground, is that they're finding that their lack, their depletion is coming out and harming their babies. And so, anyway, it's devastating and absolutely resolvable. And so I'm putting that out there for you because I want you to pick that up. I want you to start looking exactly this whole beast in its face. Look at your life. If you don't have emotional wellness, and there are some clues, if your health is not well, if you are eating in ways that you do not value, if you are speaking in ways to your children or your loved ones that you do not value, that's that reaction, that programming, if you are feeling depleted, if you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling like you don't matter, if you're waiting around for someone to come rescue you, those are all signs that you don't have the emotional wellness that you need in your life, and that you're being run to the ground. Because I want to tell you that someone's going to come to your rescue, but it's not going to happen. Because one of life's most valuable lessons is really how to become your own hero. And you will have all the opportunity to do that. Pick it up, make it happen. Figure that out. Figure out what you need. Figure out how to resolve your subconscious programming. You absolutely can. You absolutely can. And it doesn't take 3 years to do it. Absolutely. You have to rescue yourself. You do. And that's where self-confidence comes from. That's, when your kids go and they're pouring themselves a glass of milk and they spread the milk everywhere, but they get some in that glass. They're like, yes, I've done it. And they are proud of themselves and they know they can do it. And guess what? That's what emotional wellness is like. When you can start becoming your own hero in any of the small ways, when you can start taking your health back and you can start taking your emotional vibrance back and you can start being full, when you can take that back, you feel amazing. And that's where your self-confidence comes from. And that's where a lot of people have a very broken connection with themselves because they can't rely on themselves for healing because they don't know how to help themselves. But once they do, all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. Oh, thank you so much. And it's themselves. It's themselves that's doing this, that's creating this. And that's a hugely powerful thing. So there's two things happening here. There's two opportunities. One, you get to heal. You get to heal your subconscious programming, heal your emotional wounds. You get to turn back on your boundaries. But two, you get to start rebuilding a powerful relationship with yourself. I just need to mic drop at that point, but I don't know if y'all feel the same way I feel about that. But that's where it's at. And that's what you give to your kids. And that's what you give to your loved ones. That's what you give to your partner, is a healthy, vibrant person who has great self-confidence and who, I could go on and on. But that's really what I want to share with you. So let's see. I'm reading comments here. Oh gosh, I'm so glad you guys are picking up what I'm putting down. And yes, absolutely. Sarah says you have to rescue yourself. Absolutely. And, and that's one of the biggest things. One of my greatest outcomes for my clients is that they are their own best therapist, that there is no one that will do the most healing for them as themselves. There is no one that will be as faithful to them as themselves. There is no one that will understand them as much as themselves. And there's no one that will be as trained in the things, in the most advanced trauma work in the world as them. That's a big one. I think I'm stretching it a little bit. That's my goal. That's what I'm working on. and so, but that's the outcome, and it's absolutely possible. And it's a great goal. You know, you shoot for the stars, you get the moon. And what happens is that when you're able to start feeling like you can take care of yourself, all these things are happening. And that was a big piece in my journey, is that I really did this work all on my own. I don't recommend reinventing the wheel, but if you're as stubborn as I was and so insecure, I was incredibly insecure, I would not get help. I get help now because I'm not so insecure. but when, I don't even know where I was going with that, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. Oh, but yes, I do know. But it feels amazing when you can rely on yourself. And that's what I needed, and that's what I wanted. And that's what I'm watching my clients do. And that's what you can absolutely do. You can do this work yourself. You may need some guidance. You may need some stuff, but why not? You're going to be with yourself forever. Why not be skilled at this stuff? Why not know what's happening in your inner world and in your inner world and be able to resolve it, be able to reprogram it, be able to heal it, and be able to work with it and maximize it. Anyway, I'm just preaching now. So yes, Marie says, I feel like culture has programmed me to feel the opposite, that selfishness isn't good. No, that's exactly what's true. And I've been reflecting on this a lot lately because I want to say it all the time, because this is one of the major reasons why people don't heal, is because they won't take the time that it takes to be selfish. And it's very counterintuitive. But when you are a child, the only thing you get in your package is selfishness. You come as a very selfish little package. Right? And in that package, all you know is I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm sleepy, I have a mess in my diaper, or I'm ready to go to the bathroom. That's all you know. It's all about yourself. And as you grow, that's something that's actually supposed to stay intact. You're not actually supposed to stop being like a child. You're supposed to actually become like a child and then grow and build all these other things. The number one thing you need to grow is empathy. And a lot of times the world tells us we need to chop that selfishness off and build empathy. Understand everybody else, how everybody else works, what everybody else is doing, share, think about everyone else's needs, right? And that's the extreme we go to, but it's not supposed to be like that. We're actually supposed to be selfish and empathetic. We're supposed to be like children, enhanced, not, okay, now it's time to grow up, stop that nonsense. That's not what it's like. We're supposed to become more of who we are. That's how we damage ourselves in so many ways. And so I like to use the word selfishness because I want to stick it to that word, because you need to get that back. You need to get that back. And that's a part of emotional wounding. It is emotionally wounding to be disconnected from yourself and disconnected from your selfishness and your childlikeness. That is wrong. Okay. And so it occurs to me that I must go. My time here is up. But I'm so glad you guys joined me. Thank you so much for commenting. I like that interactiveness. So I do want to extend, if this is like hitting you right where it's at and you're like, yes, I absolutely need to change my subconscious programming. I need to heal some emotional wounds. I need to start setting some healthy boundaries. I need to have a life where I am emotionally well. There's room for me to be emotionally well, and life is replenishing me and not running me to the ground. If that's what you want and you know that that's what you need, I have set aside some hours in the upcoming weeks to have a 1-hour conversation with you about what's really going on, where you're blocked, what you really want, and how to get you there. This is a service that I provide that's free, and so take advantage of that if that's what you're ready to do, if that's the next step in your journey. And so that's it from me. So, oh yeah, you can do that by getting on my calendar. Grab a spot there on my calendar that works for you. Grab a spot on my calendar that works for you. I press some buttons on my computer, and that's at rachelmcleod.com/call. And that's it. So, and when you do that, I will call you at the time that you choose. It will actually be me, and we'll talk. Okay. Talk to you later. Take care.